Good evening, everyone. We're about to begin in just a few moments. I'm just going to make a quick announcement to our Spanish-speaking audience. Buenas noches. Estamos aquí listo para comenzar en unos momentos. Solo quería hacer un anuncio para haceros entender que va a haber interpretación en español. La manera de activarlo es simplemente buscar en el menú que se está colocada abajo de la pantalla. En la parte menor de la pantalla hay un icono del globo. Ahí si lo opriman van a ver que les ofrece inglés y español. Opriman, seleccionen español y van a poder oír la interpretación. All right. Well, thank you for being here. We are going to begin with a welcome from President and CEO of Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, Kate Roberts.
Great, good evening, buenas tardes. Thank you, Rafa, for introducing me. And thanks to everyone for joining our Salinas Valley Election Forum on Housing. As many of you may already know, the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership is a nonprofit, member-supported organization that works across our Tri-County region. Our work focuses on specific initiative areas that are the underpinning for a thriving economy: affordable housing, a strong workforce pipeline, ubiquitous broadband access, and climate change mitigation, which includes transportation improvements. Tonight's candidate forum is part of our advocacy and education work to help increase the supply of housing of all types and income levels across the region. MBEP has been doing nonpartisan election forums for 4 years. Everyone is welcome, and the hope is that the issues are discussed in a way that brings clarity to public policy. The mission of MBEP is to improve the economic health and quality of life in the region. These types of forums contribute to that mission. Increasing housing unaffordability impacts all residents, and our communities need real solutions, especially with the economic impact of COVID and the over 100 structures, many of them homes, that were lost to the recent wildfires. So this is an opportunity for local candidates to share their housing goals with voters. As a reminder, ballots have now been distributed, so make a plan to vote. I'd like to thank MBEP's housing team for engaging in the Salinas Valley, providing technical assistance to staff, and advocating to help meet the region's housing needs. Some examples include the Soledad and Salinas Housing 101s and Cafecitos, which are done in Spanish. These are education forums that we do for the community. The advocating for the Walnut Avenue apartments, which has resulted in almost 900 beds for farm workers in Greenfield. The Casa Baranda apartments, which is 600 beds in Baranda. The Salinas West Area Specific Plan. Salinas Inclusionary Housing Ordinance. And co-facilitating the Salinas and Pajaro Valley Farm Worker Housing Steady Action Plan Oversight Committee on an ongoing basis. We have designed the forum to focus on key housing issues that need thoughtful leadership from our elected officials. Our goal is to provide this platform for candidates during this election and to help voters make an informed decision. Many thanks to tonight's co-host, Rancho Cielo Youth Campus, and especially Cecilia Romero, who you'll hear from shortly. Now I'd like to introduce Rafael Hernandez, MBEP's housing associate, and hand the program over to him. Rafa.
Thank you, Kate. Welcome, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. We're about to begin the Salinas Valley Candidate Housing Forum. Before I begin, as Kate said, I'm so excited to have with us and joining me tonight, Cecilia Romero. Ceci, are you there?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Cecilia Romero. I don't think my video is up, but You guys can hear me okay, I believe?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Well, I'll continue until my video comes up. My name again, Cecilia Romero, Deputy Director with Rancho Cielo, and I am excited to be here. I am looking forward to the discussion tonight. As you may know, Rancho Cielo is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are in no way endorsing any of the candidates. We can't do that, but we're excited about the housing conversation. The focus of Rancho Cielo and our programs is to allow and help our students to reach their full potential. And we do that through workforce training and education. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Great. Look, I have a personal connection with Rancho Cielo. I used to volunteer teach there. And that's, on a personal level, I'm very excited to be joining with you guys. You guys have always been tuned in to housing and the housing issues. That's one thing I know, among the other things that you work on.
Yeah.
You also have a housing program. Could you tell
We
us
do.
about
Absolutely, yeah. So the housing program, along with all the academic programs, were actually part of the original mission of Rancho Cielo that were developed by our founder back in 2000. We didn't have the actual funding to put our housing project together up until around 2014. But you know, if our goal is to help our young adults become or reach their full potential through education and job training, I mean, how are they going to do that if they don't have their basic needs met? You know, you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and what's at the very bottom? We have safety, housing, food. So we have a housing program that I'm very proud of, and we offer the opportunity for our young adults to live on campus anywhere from 12 to 24 months, depending on their need, while they're enrolled in one of our academic or job training programs.
You know, I remember conversations with students, either in the classroom as part of the work we were doing or just hanging out afterwards. And the housing situation was always at the forefront of what they were talking about. At that time, at first I wouldn't think so much about it, but I started to notice and hear it over and over. How, now that we're in the pandemic, we have COVID-19 pandemic context to things, I'm wondering now how that has impacted the work that you're doing and what you see with the students.
Greatly. Like all other students, our students are doing their academic learning from a computer. They're doing that at home. And some of the things that our teachers are seeing is a growth in being absent from the classroom. And the majority of that has to do with the fact that our students have had to take on jobs that they wouldn't otherwise have to take on because their parents, their guardians, whoever the adults are at home, are for whatever reason unable to work or have been laid off. So our kids, you know, these are 16 to 24-year-olds, have had to take on the responsibility of bringing up, you know, the bread to the table, essentially. And so we'll have, just last week, actually, one of the case managers told me that there was a kid that zoomed in from out in the field. He was out there picking produce, you know, and he zoomed in into the classroom so we can count him towards, you know, so he can get credit, right, for being in the classroom. And I mean, that spirit is just amazing. You know, the fact that they have to do whatever they have to do, but that yet they're still willing to do the work that it takes to earn their high school diploma and try and build a career for themselves. That's just truly amazing to me.
Man, absolutely. Well, out of all of the issues that a candidate, someone running for office and in office, has to look at, this just continues to underscore how housing is connected and central to education, to healthcare, to so much. And that's one of the reasons why we focused on housing, to make sure we can do a bit of a deeper dive on that issue. So should we just get on with the show?
Let's do this. I'm excited. Let's do it.
Okay, let's see. Well, for tonight, here's the agenda. As you guys can see, as the folks at home can see here, we're starting with the city of Salinas, and we're going to work our way down the 101. Just continue working down south and end in Greenfield, going through our mayoral and city council candidates. And at Greenfield, we'll make our final stop. So we're beginning with Salinas, city of Salinas, and we'll start. Let's look at the candidates that we have lined up for city of Salinas. These are all the candidates that are running for office. We send invitations to everyone. And You see that we have the mayoral race and 3 of the districts. And the folks that are present today, we're happy to have them here. So let's begin. Let's begin with the mayoral race. Our very first mayoral candidate that I'll be presenting to you is candidate Chris Barrera. He has, like everyone else, they're going to get 2 minutes to present, and then we'll move on to the next candidate. So Chris Barrera, 2 minutes, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to this presentation. My name is Chris Barrera, local business owner who is running for Salinas mayor. I'm a lifelong resident of Salinas. I'm a son, father, grandfather, and community advocate. I'm ready to tackle the tough issues in our community. As mayor, I will address the tough issues of affordable housing. This is a top priority of mine. Number 1, we must keep people housed, extend renter and homeowner protections as needed. This will prevent more homelessness. We must increase the inclusionary ordinance percentage to provide more affordable housing. My goal is to get that percentage much higher than it is right now. We must increase opportunities for first-time homebuyers. Our young professionals and families should be able to purchase a home in Salinas, probably where they were born at or where they work at. As you know, I'm a realtor in Salinas, and the average home in Salinas is $550,000 approximately. And I understand the new homes in the new developments are going to be in the $600,000 range. Believe we need to build affordable inclusionary units on site in all phases of projects. Next, simplify the permitting process for homeowners to streamline building accessory dwelling units. My plan is to revamp the whole permit center and make it more friendly, and support mixed-use projects in downtown and commercial zones. In my opinion, we must take advantage of all opportunities for affordable housing for our local residents. They all deserve much more and much better than they're getting right now. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate that. All right, our next candidate who will be presenting to us is Kimberly Craig. Kimberly, there's your slide. You have 2 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight. My name is Kimberly Craig. I'm the president and CEO of the Monterey County Business Council, and I was a city councilwoman from 2010 to 2018. I'm going to go over just some real, very succinct topics. We have 2 minutes, so I want to make sure that I cover everything. I categorize these according to what I think are the most important elements in terms of housing issues within the city. Homelessness obviously is a major issue within the city limits. I hope to continue to expand those services through the navigation model at the shelter in Chinatown. Down at the end of Soledad Street, the city purchased the old Copacabana Club and is utilizing it as a facility for both sleeping, but also health services and whatnot, hoping to expand that and have that available in Chinatown. Also supporting the permanent shelter at Natividad. I was on council when the city council partnered with the county to break ground on that. And so I'm really looking forward to being a part of seeing that through and seeing the grand opening of that in 2021. And also Project Home Key, which some of you have seen most recently in the news, where the city has in the process of acquiring local motels for transitional housing needs. And also some other projects that the city is working on, like Hope Village, which is also transitional housing, kind of tiny home type model for homelessness to help get them into sufficient housing. Affordable housing, continue to support and expand workforce housing, H2A housing and motels for our farm workers, and walkable areas near multimodal transportation center and shopping. So downtown Salinas, I think there's a real opportunity there to expand. I am a product of medium density housing. I own a condo on the north side. It's what I could afford when I was a young person, age 30, trying to purchase a home. I think the west area of the future growth area obviously being considered for condos and multi-story housing for young adults, seniors and young families, and also consider rezoning of business park and commercial zoning for multi-use and housing, although there needs to be other elements in place. Lastly, market rate housing to continue to encourage construction of accessible dwelling units. Oh, am I out? I'm out. Wow, 2 minutes goes quickly. I apologize. Thank you.
No, not at all. Thank you, Emily. Our next candidate who will be presenting is Mr. Wes White. Wes, you have 2 minutes. Take it away.
Okay. Hi, my name's Wes White. I guess I'm a fourth generation Salinian. My father's, so I'm a Navy brat. I guess today I've got affordable housing as far as the lowest bottom rung being too poor to afford to rent. So this structure here would house over 150 units. So that they're all 10 by 10 squares, basically 20 by, you might be able to zoom in. Yeah, you can. You know, some of those it's a basic design. You know, it's safe for fire travel. It has where the stars are is where the bathrooms and amenities would be. There's a community space and even a library, and you know, it's a kitchen. You know, this is really just allowing people a permanent address more than anything else. So then that way we actually validate people, you know, that are too poor to afford rent. There's plenty of people that are looking for work, and if there was a permanency of an address and a safe place to be, as well as showers, you know, and especially with this eviction moratorium, I mean, if it doesn't get continued after February, then, you know, we'll be looking at an awful lot more of a game changer. And, you know, also row houses is a great idea. I mean, and I guess we'll be talking about more of this stuff in a little bit. You know, this is really simple. This is only on about 3 acres. And, you know, it's 150 people right there. We have 1,500 just in Salinas with a high likelihood of increasing our population of unsheltered. So we need to care about people and put people first, allow some housing everywhere.
Thank you very much, Wes. Thank you for that. All right, well, that's our mayoral candidates. And now we're moving on to our city council candidates. We have 3 districts being represented today, Cecilia.
All right, so unfortunately, Carla Viviana Gonzalez will not be able to join us tonight. So we will move on to City Council District 4 with candidate Orlando Osornio. Orlando, it's all yours.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Orlando Osornio, and I'm running for City Council in District 4. I'm a Salinas resident, born and raised in Salinas. I am a husband and a father, newly father to a 4-month-old baby girl. I am a small business owner here in the city, and I just want to make sure that we're representing our constituents in this area the best way we can. One of the main topics when I go door to door and am talking with residents in my area is affordable housing. We need to make sure that we are able to build this affordable housing and making sure that we are always thinking about working hard to build all types of housing. So not just maybe traditional housing that first comes to mind, but really digging down deep to seeing what are the needs of our communities, maximizing affordable housing opportunities. So making sure that we're meeting, if not exceeding, the goals of affordability when it comes to housing, improving community communication with residents, making sure that our residents have enough time to be able to view options when it comes to affordable housing, getting them more involved and being able to get information out to our residents, I think is really important. There's lots of times where I'm talking with residents and they say, we didn't know about certain projects. Well, maybe being able to work with the city to inform our residents would definitely be some great help. work to work to address the needs of the entire city, and making sure that when we do make these areas, being very conscious of traffic, being very conscious of other things that we have. Okay.
Thank you, Orlando. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to City Council District 6 with Anthony Rocha. Anthony?
I'll wait till my slide's up.
Okay, we are working on that.
All right, thank you. So my name is Anthony Rocha. I am a school board member for the Salinas Union High School District, and I'm a lifelong resident of District 6. The reason I decided to run for city council is because we have to start addressing economic disparity in our city and really in our state. But locally, I could say my generation, we're graduating college with tons of student debt and less economic opportunities for home ownership and employment opportunities than our parents did. Really, we are having a statewide housing crisis, but in Salinas, we're in a unique opportunity in which we can really make significant headway on making affordable housing here locally. We have the future growth area, which mostly is going to be focused in my district. And for me, my core philosophy on housing is people before profits. We have to focus on creating housing that meets the needs of our working families. So for me as a council member, before I approve anything, I'm going to fight really hard to make sure we have a strong community benefits agreement that includes meaningful inclusionary housing ordinances, ensures construction of higher density, prioritizes conversion of commercial property to residential, and creates a renter stabilization plan. Also, we have to look at creative ways to really meet our housing need. One of them is through accessory dwelling units, but really the city has to create easy to understand and variety of opportunities so that people could create these ADUs and they're city compliant, but also they have a nice style to them, but really easy to understand. We also have to continue to fund the Housing Trust Fund for the city to make sure that we are focusing on affordable and workforce housing. And lastly, we have to identify underperforming city property that we can partner with nonprofits like Chispa and others to create 100% affordable units. So
Thank you, Rocha. Thank you so much, Anthony. We appreciate your time. Now, Rafael will join me so we can begin the survey portion of the presentation. Rafael?
Hey, well, that was a lot of information that I'm hoping we can continue to elaborate on as we go into this next part. Just let folks know at home, we sent the candidates a survey of 7 questions. There are questions in which they can answer yes, no, or abstain. And then they'll be able to also clarify their questions, their answers to their questions. So let's look at the questions first so that we can see exactly what the candidates, what they answered. The first question is, should the city prioritize housing for farm worker families or devote more land for employers to build housing for individual workers? The second question we asked them was, would you support efforts to upzone for duplexes, fourplexes in areas currently zoned for single family homes? Number 3, would you support streamlining the process for the development of affordable low-income housing that meets state objectives by being located near job centers or public transit by exempting them from a rigorous public review process? The fourth question, the affordable housing inclusionary requirement for development in Salinas is 12 to 20% depending on project type. Do you support meeting or increasing the required minimum? Number 5, should the city prioritize housing for farm worker families or devote more land for employers to build housing for individual workers? Sorry, that was a repeat. The question number 5 that they actually.
Question number 1 is incorrect.
Yes, thank you. That slide got in there somehow, didn't get updated. The first question is, do you support going beyond the existing renter protections of the California Assembly Bill, AB 3088, known as the Tenant, Homeowner, and Small Landlord Relief and Stabilization Act of 2020? So we'll look at that when we see the next slide. We'll see the correct question. But of note about AB 3088 for folks that don't know the exact details of it, This is about giving eviction relief for residential renters and foreclosure protections for small landlords who are financially impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. And again, it's known as the Tenant, Homeowner, and Small Landlord Relief and Stabilization Act of 2020. Okay, so number 6, do you support Proposition 15, otherwise known as the Schools and Communities First Initiative, to establish a split roll tax on commercial properties? And a detail about that as well for folks at home listening. This proposition, if passed, would require that commercial and industrial properties, except those zoned for commercial agriculture, for them to be taxed based on their market value, while taxes on residential properties would continue to be assessed on purchase price. So if it's passed, it could potentially generate hundreds of millions of dollars in new tax revenue for the region. And that could support government programming, educational facilities, and other programs that include more housing. And then the last question, number 7, that we asked them is, parking and traffic are concerns raised when new housing is proposed. Do you support reducing parking requirements to enable more high-density housing near job centers and services, which means less vehicle trips are needed? So those are the 7 questions. Ceci, what do you think?
I think there's a lot of great information that I'm looking forward to hear from each of the candidates. And I want to ask you, isn't there a study that focused on farm worker housing that you're familiar about that was just recently released?
Yes, you're talking about the farm worker housing study and action plan of the Pájaro and Salinas valleys.
Mm-hmm.
That came out in the middle, in June of 2018. And actually, that's a study that, well, it came out with a lot of data that very specific to our region. To sum it up, we can say that it pointed to the amount of farm worker houses and the need and the overcrowding that we have. The numbers that it gave was that during 2016, when they were conducting the study, it identified 91,433 unique agricultural employees. And for that amount of folks, it assessed that based on that number, we needed 47,937 housing units to adequately have housing for all those folks.
Mm-hmm.
It's a large number. What they came out with from the study was an action plan that set as a goal 5,300 units to be developed, produced within the following 5 years. And the reason why it came up with 5,300 in 5 years is so that it can maintain the access rate to subsidized housing. So that's where that number came from. Basically to keep things stable and not let things get more intense in terms of the housing.
Okay.
Now that we're talking about this, I'm remembering what you said earlier about one of the students that you mentioned zooming in from field, which, I mean, those stories, we hear them, but I always like to take a moment, especially as a former school teacher and thinking about them. How many farm workers or farm worker families would you say the students that you work with at Rancho Cielo come from? Like, how many make up your student body? What amount?
At least half of our population have some sort of farm worker background in their families. And, that is actually one of the main reasons that we wanted to incorporate vocational training in that field. Again, at the very beginning when Rancho Cielo was first developed, the 3 main industries that we wanted to touch on were construction, hospitality, and agriculture. So now we're excited, on top of the housing, to offer vocational training in the agriculture industry so that we can expose our students and help them understand that there are jobs outside of just picking produce. There are opportunities for career growth and an opportunity to break that cycle of poverty in their family. So we're excited about offering that opportunity for our youth.
It's great. For me, I think the big thing is just continuing to add to their menu of options. There's many different paths. Get through high school, take care of that, and we should fill as much of their menu of options. That's how I like to think of it.
Yeah. It's all about exposure. So now let's move on to the survey responses. Are you ready for that, Rafael?
Yeah, I mean, so we're looking here.
Okay.
This is their answers, their yes, no answers. Well, I don't know what you think. The first impression I get is I see a lot of yeses, which first thing I think is there's a lot of agreement.
Right.
A lot of the questions here. Of course, you know, a yes from one person, a yes from another person, there's always nuance and variation. And well, that's what we're going to listen to. And that's why they get time to clarify their answers.
Yeah, and so now each candidate will have an opportunity. They'll have 3 minutes to either elaborate on their response and also give us their closing remarks. So we will go ahead and get started with Mr. Chris Barrera.
Okay, so as far as question number 1 with the AB 3088, the state has done a great job for now, but it's temporary relief. The city may need to go further by providing rental assistance and legal assistance to renters to help prevent homelessness, which, if allowed to increase, would worsen our health emergency and economic recovery. Moving forward to the inclusionary question on number 4, I am in favor of this one as well. We should work with all stakeholders to find a way to increase our affordable percentage required by market rate projects. We will have more pressure from Silicon Valley investors and buyers who can work remotely. We can ensure project feasibility by offering more development incentives like deferring fees and providing flexibility with design standards like less parking where we have public transportation near job centers. And my next one, let's see, the farm worker families. Farm worker housing studies showed that a majority of farm workers are part of families who live in overcrowded conditions. This should be our first priority by all means. And once we have identified the best sites for families, then we can provide more support to employer-sponsored housing like H2A. That is also good since it helps to reduce overcrowding. And lastly, regarding Prop 15, in my opinion, we desperately need these resources for schools and community services like parks, libraries, public safety officers, and our crumbling streets. Large corporations benefit from a stronger, healthier community and should pay their fair share of taxes. Small businesses with less than $3 million in excess property values and agricultural properties are exempt and will help protect our local economic recovery. In conclusion, I will be creating an affordable housing committee where we will have local experts, community advocates, and residents of Salinas to join in and put all of our minds together. We must come up with a solution and make progress for the betterment of our community regarding affordable housing. When I say together we can, I truly mean that, and I will do everything in my power to make it as transparent as possible and listen to all the voices in our community. I humbly ask for your vote in my journey of becoming the next mayor of Salinas, because together we can. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. We appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.
Now we will move on to Ms. Kimberly Craig. Kimberly, are you there?
I am, thank you. Just a brief, I'd like to cover a couple of the explanations for the questionnaire. Obviously, number 1, going beyond AB 3088 renter protections. I certainly understand the need to assist and protect tenants, homeowners, and small landlords, particularly only being responsible for 25% of what they owe. However, some protections are needed for commercial real estate tenants and landlords, small businesses, which is not included in the bill. And so this is a critical missing element as businesses are forced to close due to the pandemic and rent is not being paid by those businesses. So that's why I chose to abstain on that particular answer. I'd like to go down to number 6, Prop 15. The City of Salinas will receive an additional $9,812,000 with the passage of Prop 15. I'll advocate for these funds to be used for housing and homelessness prevention services, job training, youth programs, domestic violence services, libraries, parks and street, and sidewalk repairs at the city level. Additionally, $6,113,000 will go to Salinas City Elementary School District, and $11,284,000 for Salinas Union High School District are expected to be generated if Prop 15 passes. So that is a critical proposition for our community that I fully support. Lastly, and just in summary, while I was on council, I supported MBEP's Housing Trust Fund, the $500,000 from the City of Salinas, certainly supportive of the Farm Worker Housing Study and Action Plan, and Monterey Bay Economic Partnership's Housing White Paper that I know Matt Huerta worked so hard on for best practices for local cities. As well as the many projects funded for sheltering the homeless. So it is one of my major issues that I see as a future mayor that we need to be addressing and increasing. I also do believe that we need to be focusing on economic recovery. The city is facing a $19.3 million deficit, of which $14 million is COVID related, and it is still going. So ultimately, those two major issues are critical elements for the next mayor to be addressing, and I hope to be the one to take the lead on both of those. So I would humbly ask for your vote on November 3rd, and I appreciate being here and having the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. We appreciate your time. And now we will hear from Mr. Wes White.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, most of these are pretty standard answers. I almost just want to go into closing statements. You know, I like the inclusion of including. Oh man, all right. So I just wanted to really worry more about what are we going to do with this money. I don't want to get stuck on red tape. You know, the budget is definitely a big one. Transparency, accountability. And affordable housing, which would include the homeless, you know, because validating people, give them an address, give them running water and electricity, because shelter is a human right. And I think that's foundational. I mean, I think one of the things that is going to be a concern is code enforcement for people in single family, you know, creating more pressure on affordable housing. So I'd like to loosen some of the grinding wheels. It seemed like, why do we have a jail and why do we have a prison and why do we have juvenile hall and a police station? That's where both of our money went in the last couple of years. So relaxing, you know, business attitude as well for permits. Today they had a thing for even just ice cream carts, and you know, we just need to make sure that we're not being abusive with our power. Be authoritative, not authoritarian, and you know, make sure that the spirit of law matches the letter of law. And so any and every project I've been doing, my YouTube channel is John Doe 13K. Anything helpful and positive, civic, social, environmental justice oriented. So I'm always about including people in all the decisions, transparency and accountability, because I video the thing, paid attention a lot. I know who the players are and I know their intentions, and it needs to be people first. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Kyla Gonzalez is not with us tonight, so we will move on to Orlando Osorio, candidate for City Council, seat 4, or District 4. Orlando,
right.
Are you there?
Yes, I am. Give me just a second. All right. So again, I just wanted to say thank you for having me and being able to give you my responses. And I'm going to be talking about question number 3. We need more high quality and affordable housing. We need to make sure that we are making sure it makes sense to build near jobs and where people have access to public transportation. The residents would be less likely to have to jump in their cars and drive if we make sure that they have adequate transportation. So as I believe, as long as we have our affordability and environmental goals that are being met, then these projects should go in front when it comes to permitting processes. So that's what I have on number 3. I'm also going to be talking about can't see it here. Number 5 of prioritizing housing for farm working families. That was another really big and important question for me because we need all types of housing. Farm worker housing for families is crucial. It's very important. And I know it should be one of our number 1 priorities. But we also have to make sure that we're making opportunities for all working and working class. And we need to make sure that we're looking at the H2A housing as well. And that'll help us prevent overcrowding. The Salinas Valley is, leading in this, and we need to continue to make sure that we're staying good by our residents here in Salinas. And then the last one is going to be to reducing parking and required enable high density housing. So I believe that I abstained to this answer, but I kind of wanted to go over why I did. And basically we need to make sure that where we are building, we have, because we already do have issues when it comes to parking and things like that. So it would be case by case. I am very supportive of making sure that it's a community effort. So being able to get input from residents in these areas and being able to have town halls and be able to have forums that go over the information. So that's what I would like to do as far as those 3 questions that I highlighted there. Again, my name's Orlando Osornio. I am running for City Council here in District 4. I like to introduce myself as a team player and being able to get with all sides of Salinas and being able to come to agreements with what makes best sense for our residents. So when it comes to housing, you can definitely count on me to make sure that we're putting our residents first. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Orlando. And now we will be moving to our last City of Salinas candidate, and this is for District 6, Anthony Rocha, City Council District 6.
So in my opening statement, I was cut off 30 seconds early. So I was wondering if I could get those 30 seconds to be transferred over to this.
I believe so, yes.
Thank you, I appreciate that a lot. So and this is also the closing statements, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so starting off with AB 3088, I work in the nonprofit sector. I'm a special projects coordinator for a statewide education nonprofit. And then prior to that, I was the development officer for a foster care agency. So I was tasked with bringing in, much needed revenue through grants and individual donor solicitation, but sometimes it wasn't enough. And really right now with COVID, a lot of that is impacting nonprofits disproportionately. We don't have the funding we previously had. And sadly, in the nonprofit sector, we don't have unions. So a lot of people are being laid off in the nonprofit sector. And really, these are the people that are working in our communities and love our communities. And sadly, they're being put in a position to where they're looking at potential evictions. And I think, Mr. Barrera mentioned a good point, which is actually long-term, it's gonna hurt us more if people become homeless now. So we have to take some, precautionary measures to ensure people don't become homeless in the first place. And I think AB 3088 does that, as well as implementing proper accountability measures to make sure that these rents are being paid in a timely manner. So, and the second question is upzoning area zone for single family homes. Salinas doesn't really have much diversification in their housing market. You have a lot of single family homes, but not really the income to match the housing we have. So I'm, open to ways to diversify our housing market to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our communities. The third one is streamlining the process for development of affordable and low-income housing. Absolutely. We have to make sure, especially with what's going on right now, we have more affordable housing in, the market, and really making sure that we're meeting, like I mentioned, the community's needs in terms of housing. The fourth question is meeting or increasing the inclusionary housing ordinance. Before it was at 25%, and I believe it was in, after certain people were unseated in 2016, at the council of 2018, reduced it significantly. And, you know, we're in a position to where now we really needed that more than ever. So I support 25% and possibly increasing it. And also we could look at ways of spreading it out, whether it goes to middle, moderate, and low-income housing, but really having diversity in our housing market, that we could open up the low-income housing units for people that really need it. Prioritizing housing for farm workers, absolutely. But in my questionnaire, that was a repeat of question number 1. So I didn't get the actual question, but what I'll say is we have a $9 billion ag economy here, and we need to make sure we're prioritizing those people who are fueling our local economy through farm worker housing. Do I support Proposition 15? I'm a school board member. You bet your bottom dollar I support Proposition 15. It brings in, like Craig mentioned, $11 million to Salinas Union High School District, $9 million to the city of Salinas, $45 million to the county of Monterey, and $12 billion possibly to the entire state of California. That's much needed revenue that we need, especially as schools are looking at potential overcrowding of our schools with the future growth area. Lastly, reduce parking requirements. Yes, we need to ensure we are creating walkable communities. People should be able to go to the bank, the grocery store, get their mail, and not have to get in their car to do that. So, you know, I'm much more really focused on, like I mentioned, creating walkable communities, getting people out there, talking to each other, and getting their essentials without having to get into their car. So my closing statement is really, this election is a crossroads for our community, and we have to make the decision to put people before profits, elect people that have the political courage to fight for affordable housing, not only taking on the NIMBYism, but also taking on people who would much rather see more market rate and less affordable housing. We have to make sure that we're putting those who need us most at the forefront of the issues. And I want to say thank you so much to MBET for putting this housing forum together. I thought it was a really big priority to attend it, and I think the other candidates for attending as well. This is one of the most important issues, and you've dedicated a whole forum to it. So thank you so much for doing that, and thank you for the amazing work you do.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Appreciate that. And I'm glad you got your time. So sorry about that. Well, Cecilia, what do you think? There was, like we said at the beginning, a lot of yeses, but did you hear the variations? You hear some, especially on the abstains?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody has their own perspective, right? So it was great to hear more about their responses. And yeah, I can't wait to hear more from the other cities.
Well, let's move on then. So that concludes Salinas. Thank you to all of our Salinas candidates. Thank you for being here. I think it's, before we continue, I just want to make the point that I do see these types of events as a public service, in the sense that it allows the public to get not only more information about very important issue that housing is, but also to learn more about the candidates, the folks that they're going to be voting on. And of course, for the candidates, it's very important to have as many avenues to the public to communicate. So that's one of the reasons why MBEP is involved in such events. So thank you again for those of you watching, and to our candidates. Continuing in that vein, now we're going down south, hit the 101, and we're making the exit, getting off in Gonzales. Here are the Gonzales candidates that are running for office. We had mayoral candidates and city council candidates. The mayoral candidates, so like we said, we invited everyone. And let's see, waiting for that slide. Here we go. So you see, we have our mayoral candidates that responded, and we have some of their info. Now, I found out last minute that unfortunately, candidate Henry Martinez Jr. will not be present with us today. So we have, Mayor Orozco, Maria Orozco, here with us. So thank you for that. So, Mayor, you have 2 minutes. Take it away. Oh, Mayor, and you'll just need to unmute yourself so that we can hear you. We see you though. There you are.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you a little bit about myself. I've been a resident of Gonzales for about 29 years, retired from the city of Salinas, about 2 years ago. I always say that my home away from home, the city of Salinas, after 34 years of service, and worked in various departments for the city of Salinas, including working with small businesses and housing programs and other departments. Housing has been one of my main priorities here for the city of Gonzales. So I'm really happy to be able to share with you. I will continue as mayor. I am running again as mayor for the city of Gonzales. I've served on the Gonzales City Council since 2001 and was elected in 2008 to serve as mayor. I am the first elected mayor for the city of Gonzales. We used to rotate that position before. And my goals are to ensure that our city continues to, that we continue to prioritize and serve our community and continue to be a small and safe community that everyone can be proud to call home. I would like to continue and move on with our slide presentation so I can go over some of our goals for the city of Salinas in regards to our housing priorities. So the first priority, of course, for us is to finish the Vista Lucia annexation of approximately 768 acres that over the time will generate approximately 3,600 units of a wide range of residential homes and densities and housing types for all of our different income levels, age groups, and lifestyles. This is a long-term housing project that is going to be phased in. The first phase of the project is estimated to produce approximately 1,861 housing units. Site preparation is expected to start by late 2021 and by early 2022 with approximately 200 units. So once again, this is a long range plan for the city of Gonzales. The next priority for us is continuing the implementation of a proactive ADU program.
Mayor, oh, sorry, we're at time.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So moving on from Mayor Orozco's presentation, let's look at the survey responses. So we'll look at these. A lot of the questions are similar to the ones that we asked the Salinas candidates, and you'll see this throughout the forum as the issues remain constant throughout the Salinas Valley. One reason why this group of elections made sense to be put together. The first question, there it is, the one about AB 3088. Does the candidate support going beyond that? One of the reasons that has been talked about going beyond what that means is the protections go on till the end of January of 2021. And the idea with going beyond comes from what will things be like? Will they be different, or will we be in a similar challenging situation in which tenants and landlords will still need support? The question two, again, about upzoning in areas where they're only zoned for single and family homes. Question number three is the one about traffic, supporting reduced traffic requirements to enable higher density housing that are near job centers and services. Number four, this one's very Gonzales centric, specific to Gonzales. As the future growth area lies to the east of Highway 101, and all services are currently on the west of Highway 101, do you have a plan to expand emergency services to the other side, such as fire and police? Number five is that Proposition 15 question that we had mentioned before and that I explained a little bit more about. Number six, farm worker housing priority. Should the city prioritize housing for farm worker families or devote more land for employers to build housing for individual workers? And the last question, do you feel the city is able to do more in providing local funding for housing to encourage match funding from state programs? So those are the 7 questions, Ceci, that we asked our Gonzales candidates.
Great. You know, some of these have an impact on small businesses. What do you think the impact will be on small businesses, Rafael?
Are you speaking about Proposition 15
specifically? Yeah, to Prop 15, yeah.
you're right in general. That's the one that definitely stands out. Well, from my understanding, small businesses up to $3 million in assessed value are exempt. So Proposition 15, the new tax structure that it proposes, it exempts those properties worth up to $3 million or less and allows for an extended phase-in period. So that's my understanding of that proposition.
Okay.
Yeah, any
Thank you.
commercial or industrial property owner with more than 3 million of a California real estate would have to pay taxes based on the current market value of the property. Yeah.
Okay.
But I know, like you said before, well, let's look at the answers here. So we have answers from our candidate, Mayor Maria Orozco. Let's see. And again, as we said before, she will have about 3 minutes to discuss her answers, her yes, no's, etc., and to close out, to give her closing statement. So as we wait for a slide to come up that shows those the answers, there we go. I was thinking again also about how these, so okay, hold on a second. So again, my apologies. What we'll do here is, as we see that our candidate answered yes for all the questions, let's go back to the previous slide, the one that shows all the questions right there. And so, Mayor, you answered yes to all of these slides, to all of these questions, which makes it easy to, let's look at the full questions, makes it easy to know your answers. But now let's hear your clarifications on why you agreed all the way through on this, answering yes. And you have 3 minutes.
Especially question number 6, when you know, should the city prioritize housing for farm worker families, or devote more land for employers to build housing for individual workers? We're a small community here in Gonzales, and it's always a challenge for families to find affordable housing, especially our farm worker families. Many of our families struggle to find affordable housing opportunities here in our city. We're very limited. We have a very limited housing stock. So many times families have to share housing units to ease, you know, the high cost of rents and the lack of availability. I've heard stories from families who find a home and want to rent it, but the rent is extremely high because it's been occupied by some of our you know, H2A workers, for example. So they're not able to rent these units. Our agricultural industrial park is in an area where it's set aside for businesses. So that would make it very challenging to try and build housing for workers. But we continue to look at different funding sources and different opportunities to build affordable housing projects in our community. You know, last year, I believe it was last year, we did have an opportunity to build some additional housing through our partner Chispa, and we were not successful in doing that. Again, not because they didn't want the affordability. It really had, a lot of it had to do with traffic congestion on that particular street. So it is a struggle that we will continue to work with our partners to try and continue to provide affordable housing, not just for our farm worker families, but for all of our families who want to live in Gonzales.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
And along with that, along with question number 7, do you feel the city could do more in providing local funding for housing and encourage match funding from the state programs? Because we are a small community, we're not under entitlement. Therefore, you know, the challenge for us to obtain funding is a challenge, just because we don't automatically get the money that comes from the state or the federal government. But a few years ago, we were able to provide some affordable housing projects in our community by working with Chispa. We were able to build some units, and we were able to provide Chispa with a $500,000 loan to help them build the units that they did. And we also assisted the Housing Authority with RDA housing funds to build units on Fano Road, which improved housing opportunities for our families. And also we were, along with the city of Salinas, we were another city who was able to provide MBEB's Housing Trust to fund MBEB's Housing Trust Fund. So the challenges continue to be, accessing state and federal funding, but we just continue to work and try to be more successful at getting some of these grant monies that are made available.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. Ceci, so what do you think of these questions for Gonzales specifically, and in the context of our forum so far?
This is tough. There's a lot to think about, a lot of things that come into play. So again, knowledge is power. So all of this information hopefully will help those that are undecided on who they will vote for to really gauge, this is the candidate that I want. Yeah,
exactly. Well, we're going to continue our trip down Soledad, or down the 101 to Soledad. Mm-hmm. So let's exit the 101 and get to Soledad.
So now we will get on your screen, you now see the list of candidates for the city of Soledad. Unfortunately, the two city council candidates will not be joining us tonight, but we do have Fred Ledesma and Ana Velasquez, who are running for the mayor seat. So we will go ahead, and again, we'll follow the 2-minute format. So we will start off with Fred Ledesma.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you so much, Rafael, for giving me the opportunity. And I would just say, I didn't put together a slide, but I will just discuss real quick the challenges we have in South Monterey County. And I think it was good that Mayor Orozco was on prior to me, and the fact that a few years ago we tried to put together a trip to Mendocino County, I think Sonoma County, excuse me, just to look at their housing project, their farm worker and housing project. Invited all the South County cities, invited the Farm Bureau, invited the supervisor at that time, it was Simon. And long story short, the city showed up. None of the farm officials showed up, or a supervisor. So one of the challenges that we have is that we have to have a regional approach in the fact that we don't have the resources. We do our best with what we have, and I think we've made some really good progress. But I think we're going to need to really sit down as South County cities and really kind of try to tackle some of these challenges collectively. I think our biggest issue really is the farm working issue. The difference in Salinas and in North County and South County is probably 90% of the farm labor is farm labor contractors. So unlike people that work at TNA or a Dole, these people work for a farm labor contractor. So the amount of expendable cash is much more limited because they're not employees per se of the company. So one of the challenges we've been having is kind of identifying that. I really appreciate that Supervisor Lopez has been a little bit more hands-on because he is a South County boy. So I'm hoping that we can continue that relationship with Chris as far as getting the opportunity to start putting some projects together. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's probably too many things to really discuss. I can go in smaller detail, but I know in 2 minutes it's pretty short. But there's a few that I will discuss here at the 3-minute mark when we look at the other issues. But I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Now it's time for Ana Velasquez. Ana.
Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you, everybody, too. Thank you, Cecilia, and thank you, Rafael, for inviting me to be here. So I'm a lifelong resident of Soledad, born and raised, farm worker parents. So the issues that I see with housing in Soledad is accessibility. So I'll touch on 3, which is accessibility, affordability, and also overcrowding. So the city currently is at build out with minimal vacant land. So the city currently is completing some of the projects that have been approved previously. So we have 582 potential housing units that are currently either under construction or in the approval process. However, these numbers do not address the needs of our low-income families, who represent over 50% of our population. The city has developed in the past 637 existing affordable units. However, the last affordable unit that was developed was by Chispa in 2003. So it's really critical to be able to look at those needs of our existing families based on the income demographics. How do we address this issue? Well, the inclusionary housing ordinance currently doesn't support the construction of the very much needed housing for very low and low income units. Also looking, how do we streamline the ADU process and incentivize it for our homeowners? Currently, the city is also in the LAFCO approval process for annexation of 63 acres for construction of 2,500 new housing units. And it's going to be really critical that the city really address some of the existing barriers that we have for building housing for our families. According to our 2018 housing element, the city hasn't made progress really toward its lower income allocations. Affordability is another big issue for us. So our high housing costs and rental rates have continued to increase over the past 10 years in Soledad. Our current median household income is $60,000. So our homes that we're building currently remain unaffordable for many of our families. The current data shows that our home values in Soledad are about $449,000 and the rent over $2,500. So obviously many of our families pay more than 30% of their annual gross income toward housing. And many
Thank you, Ana.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, 2 minutes goes by real quick. Thank you. We appreciate your time. All right, Rafael, now we are ready for the survey results, I believe, right?
Yes, yes. So let's look at these. Again, a lot of the same questions because as we mentioned, the issues are consistent throughout. There's the one on AB 3088. There's the second question on upzoning on areas that are zoned for just single family homes. There's the one about parking and traffic, supporting reducing parking requirements to enable more high density housing that are near job centers and services. The ideal situation there, of course, is having public transportation and other services that allow folks to be able to get the things that they need and get to where they need to go without a vehicle, on foot, bicycle, or public transportation. For the farm worker housing, prioritizing for the families of farm workers or devoting more land for employers to build housing for individual workers. A point I want to make there too is when we look at farm worker housing, we can think of two basic areas. One would be housing for just like us, folks that live here all year round, that we live here. And then there's folks that are the H-2A workers that are here on that visa. And their housing situation is different in the sense that they come here as an individual worker. They don't stay here the full year. And an employer who hires someone through the H-2A visa process is required to provide, among other things, housing. So those are when we think farm worker housing, we have to think at least in those two basic buckets, if you will, those two basic categories. And they both have their place and we need housing for both. The farm worker housing study indicated the vast majority of the housing need, though, is with the permanent families, the ones that live here year round, just like you and me.
Okay.
There's a Prop 15 question, number 5.
Mm-hmm.
You know that one. Number 6 for Soledad, do you feel Soledad could do more in terms of providing workforce housing? Workforce housing here, we're thinking teachers, nurses, that category as a generalization. And then the last one is the one again about, do you feel the city is able to do more in providing local funding for housing to encourage match funding from state programs? Again, a general idea there is from the state side, when they see a jurisdiction putting their local resources toward housing, it's almost like in an application, it highlights them as putting effort toward housing that the state then wants to match, to reciprocate. Mm-hmm. So that's why that's important.
Absolutely. So now let's see how our candidates responded. So we'll move on to that slide. Okay, so again, here is where we follow the 3-minute format. So each candidate will have 3 minutes to tell us more about their response and or close off statements. So we'll start off with Fred Ledesma.
Right, thank you. I just wanted to maybe go real quick. Of course, AB 3088, people are going to need help. The pandemic is affecting us much more than I think any of us ever imagined. So that is going to pretty much be a given. The upgrade for the duplex, fourplex in the area, of course, yes, I think we all agree in that. Alleviate parking requirements, yes. One of the issues with the parking, though, we're going to have to come up with some creative ways to enforce parking. Problem in South Monterey County, I think this is everywhere, but usually in areas of poverty. A lot of the farm workers will have a large number of vehicles. You might have 4 drivers and 8 cars in a household. And this really leads to real tough conditions. So I think we're going to have to really start studying some creative ways on what we can do in regards to the parking. The rental housing for the farm workers, I think, is, of course, a big priority. But I really believe this. I was kind of alluding to the statement that really the ag industry needs to really partner with the cities. We need to kind of extend a hand and talk to them in a real candid manner in regards to how we provide housing, because this is their workforce. One of the weaknesses in the current model that we have right now is that people are looking at the cities to provide these housing, right? So in most cases, the scenario is such that what a person gets paid should be enough to pay for their housing. But in the ag industry, that's not going to be true. They don't make enough money to afford the housing. The other part is South Monterey County, probably 80% of the farm workers are illegal. So you're going to also have to address that issue, because that precludes a lot of people from getting the grant or the loan that might be available because of that, because of their documentation status. So I really believe that we need to start becoming more creative in regards to that. In regards to the Prop 15, here's my issue. I've been self-employed for 41 years, pretty much since as an adult. Since I was 21 years old, I've been self-employed. The state of California, we've lost 13,000 businesses in the last 6 years, 13,000, including Charles Schwab will be leaving next year in 2021. And the complaint that everyone has about California is the amount of taxation. I understand that, we need to do something in regards to funding schools and in regards to funding some of our housing projects, but by continuing to tax corporations, the issue is going to be, you're going to end up with having more and more large companies leave you. So I think we need to readdress that and have real candid discussions about how we can get that money. I'm not abased to some kind of tax, but in the current form, I don't support 15 because of that. I think we should do a little bit more. To do more for workforce housing, I just want to share something with you. The city of Soledad has a lot on Soledad Street. We've been considering what to do. This is the second time around that we've offered that property to the Soledad School District to build teacher housing. If the bond that they're trying to apply for.
Unfortunately, your time is out. I am so sorry to cut you off.
No, okay. No, you got to do your job. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your input. Okay, so now we will move on to Ana Velasquez. Ana?
Hi, Cecilia. Sorry, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Yeah, so going through the questions, just for question number 1, I did say I supported, obviously, as the mayor stated, especially many of our families are struggling financially already. So COVID-19, they need their protector. They need to protect their the renters and our small landlords in order to avoid a mass eviction. We're only 3 months away from the January 31st, 2021 date. So the county still hasn't reopened some of the sectors and people aren't fully at work yet. So we definitely are gonna need additional protections for our families and for our small landlords. In terms of question number 2, would you support efforts to upzone and duplexes and fourplexes? And I said yes to this question as a means to address our issues of overcrowding. So the city of Soledad has done a good job in developing single family homes. However, we don't have a lot of mixed type of housing. So you don't see the densities outside when you see the single family homes, but then we have 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 families living in one household. So for me, as a means of addressing the issues of overcrowding and really allowing this opportunity to be able to build more housing, I'm for that. In terms of question 3, parking and traffic concerns raised when new housing is proposed, reducing some of the parking requirements for high density housing. This is a little bit, I said yes, but I also understand that in small rural communities like South County, we also have other challenges that we need to consider. So Soledad has a large percentage of commuters. And so we also require reliable forms of transportation. Our job centers are not located within our city boundaries, and many of our residents travel outside of Salinas and beyond. So for me, it would obviously would work if we have those job centers and services nearby, and also if we address our issues of public transportation to be more frequent. Question number 4, in terms of farm workers, excuse me, definitely. The studies show that over 31,000, we need over 31,000 of farm worker units in Monterey County. Seeing our population in Soledad that the majority is farm workers, we definitely need to be building more housing for them. In terms of question of Proposition 15, I said yes, because the city is estimated to bring 866,000 funding annually to the city of Soledad. So the city of Soledad, like many of our rural communities, really struggle with funding. So this creates an unrestricted fund for the cities to use for our critical services, and it reduces the need to increase the sales tax for our residents. So for me, this is really critical in order to be able to streamline and really bring in more additional resources that are much needed in our communities, and really addressing now the issues with the digital divide with our schools. It's really essential that we focus, and that becomes our priority, to really make sure that we are supporting our students and our families to be successful.
Thank you so much, Ana. We appreciate your time and your responses. And that'll do it for the city of Soledad.
You know, one thing, Ceci, that I was thinking as we've been progressing down the 101 and listening to the candidates, which I just keep appreciating their time to participate here. I hope the public also finds this informative and useful. The thing that stood out for me is when we look at the issue of housing, and we look at farm worker housing, that's been a big theme for us tonight, as it's a big part of our culture, our region here. It's just, that's when they say there's no silver bullet, there's not like that one magical solution. It's a combination of things. This, what I'm hearing as well, and tell me what you think, it's also not any one industry or one area. It's going to take private industry to working with the public sector, with nonprofits, all these different entities that are part of the community and exist in the community in different ways. So again, MBEP and Rancho Cielo, the educational background that you have there in the work that you do with our youth and the connection of farm worker housing, the work that we do in our different initiatives, and thinking about the different organizations in our area. But of course, we have the ag industry, we have our elected officials, we have city staff who aren't elected officials, but are working there with them and having to do all that work, grind it out. And we have the local community that we want them to attend events like this. We want them to be active at city councils and planning commission meetings and make their voices heard. I mean, what do you think about that? It's just the thing that stood out to me.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's all about collaboration, from the private, public industries, like you mentioned. It takes a village. I'm a parent of 2 now, and I understand that literally it does take a village to solve any issue. It's really gratifying, though, to see the passion behind the candidates that are running for office, and whoever it is that people decide to vote for. It's great to see that people in our county care so much about whatever is going on, that they are choosing to run for office and do something about it. But it also comes to the responsibility of the community, like you said, to understand what the issues are and to vote, to go out there and participate.
Well, continuing from the theme of participation then, let's get our last jurisdiction that's participating. Our last stop down the 101 for the evening, Greenfield. So we're exiting off. making a stop here. And the candidates, we invited all the candidates, and we're very happy to have Avelina Torres with us tonight. So Avelina, we're going to queue up your housing slide. And just as everyone else, you have 2 minutes, please. We'll wait for you to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank
Can
you.
you hear me okay?
Yes, very well.
Okay, great. Yes.
Okay, so you have 2 minutes to present, please. The floor is yours.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Avelina Torres, and I'm running for City Council here in the City of Greenfield. I was in the council previously from 2014 to 2018. I was also appointed as Mayor Pro Tem at that time. I am a very strong supporter for affordable housing and for farm worker housing. At that time, I fought and fought and fought with my fellow council members to please pass it. And at that time, they didn't want to, but it seems like everything's okay now because now we have a wonderful place being built here in our city. I'm hoping that I do get elected so I could represent our community and move forward and do the best thing I can for my community that I totally adore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, let's look at, let's move on to our final survey of the evening, and we'll look at the questions that we had prepared for the Greenfield candidates. And again, you're going to see the AB 3088 question, the upzone for duplexes and fourplexes in areas that are zoned for single family homes. Number 3, would you support streamlining the process for the development of affordable low-income housing that meets state objectives by being located near job centers or public transit by exempting them from a rigorous public review process? So we had that one earlier in the evening. Number 4,
yes.
We have the one about prioritizing housing for farm worker families. Number 5, the parking question about reducing parking requirements for high density housing projects. Number 6 is a Proposition 15 question. Do you support it? And the last question that we asked for, that we prepared for Greenfield is, do you feel the city could do more in providing local funding for housing to encourage match funding from state programs? We talked about that in our last, in Soledad's section. So let's look at the answers that you put forward, Avelina. So you answered yes to all of them.
Yes.
You have 3 minutes to talk about why you answered the way you did and to give your final statements. Please, go ahead.
To answer each one, I'm hoping, right? Or to answer all of them?
You have 3 minutes total for going through them all and to do your closing statements. Yes.
All right. Well, I am all for renter protection and everything for people that need homes. I'm always been for affordable housing and for farm worker housing. I think that the city needs to look into that a little bit more and make sure that we do provide housing for those people that are being affected by COVID-19, to make sure that they do have a place to live, that they don't have to live all bunched up together, because that is how you spread the virus. I am very happy that we do have something coming up right now in the city of Greenfield, but I truly feel that we need a little bit more. I really would like to have more affordable housing, because I feel that if we depend on, well, you know, the bosses of these poor people that are working with the farm workers, they're just going to be building it for the farm workers. I would like to see housing for families of farm workers, plus them, not just the farm workers, because a lot of farm workers do have families. I have a neighbor who has at least 4 families living with her. She's a wonderful person. She has a large house, but these poor people need their own places, and they don't have them, but they go to work in the fields every single day. And I know how much they're being exposed to COVID-19. So we really, really need to take care of that. And I've always supported affordable housing. I've always supported farm worker housing since I come from a farm worker family. I met my husband working out in the fields. His parents worked out in the fields. My parents worked out in the fields. And I met my husband when I was 12 and he was 15, and we were both out there working in the fields. And I remember what those places used to look like, those camps. They are terrible now that I think about it, because I've seen the beautiful homes that are being built for our farm workers. Those are just beautiful places to live. And I really, really would like for our city to look more into that. We need our council to support whatever we can for those farm workers and for those nurses and for those doctors, anybody else who can take advantage of affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Evelina.
You're welcome.
Well, if we look at this part, Cecilia, we come to the end of the highway for the evening. We covered a lot of the questions from different angles. I think it was good to hear them answered by different folks and elaborated on. What are you thinking now for, one thing actually I do want to say about Greenfield before I say what you think is, I do want to make a note that Greenfield, since, even 2018 or thereabouts, possibly before even, it has been active in, the staff, city staff and folks there have been working on getting different housing projects going. There's a HOA farm worker housing project going that's being constructed right now, and there's a couple others that are apartments that include either 100% affordable housing or a percentage of it. So there has been farm worker housing projects and affordable housing projects going on in Greenfield recently. So I do want to make a note about that. But what do you think?
Yeah, there have, yeah. I think I am excited for this election. Obviously, a ton of different decisions that have to be made, very important decisions, So if anyone out there is ready to vote, but they are unsure whether they are registered or not, please check your registration status. And you can do that online. If you are, 16, 17, not quite there, ready to vote just yet, you can just pre-register and make sure that when you do turn 18, you are ready to go. And if you haven't registered at all, please do so online. The registration deadline for the online is coming up on October 19th. So make sure that you do, and all you need is, you need your driver's license, you need a date of birth, and the last 4 of your social security.
Yes, vote if you can. And the other thing, actually, we were talking about this, Ceci, the other thing is vote if you can. However, with the census, everyone can and needs to fill it out. So in a sense, cast your vote in saying, I'm here and I'm present. Right. This is everybody. The deadline for it was recently extended. It was going to end at the end of September. Now we hear that it'll be end of October. There's folks that are looking to extend it even beyond that. We have to wait and see. But I just think we can't take anything for granted. One thing that 2020 has taught us is we can't take anything for granted. So right now we still have some time to fill out the census. So folks, please fill it out. It's, as you've heard probably from other folks, a lot of the great folks that are working on the census campaign, it's essentially power and money. More funding that every jurisdiction deserves to have for the folks that are there. Federal funding for roads, hospitals, services, schools, and housing. And of course, very important as well, more political representation, or rather the proper political representation for the number of people in a jurisdiction. So please, please fill out the census if you haven't. Is this something that you feel like at Rancho Cielo, the students are thinking about at the level in terms of their local politics?
Oh yeah, we have made sure to talk about it in our classrooms through Zoom. All of our teachers have done workshops on both census and how to register to vote. In fact, today during our staff meeting too, our CEO made sure that all of our staff is registered to vote, and those that are able to, and that we have completed the census. So it's a big deal for us, especially with the population that we serve. We have to participate, otherwise you can't complain if you don't. So
you can complain, but what's it going to do, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's complain with our action.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to say except one, thank you to all our candidates, right? Everyone that participated. And super, super great big thank you to you, Ceci and Ancho Cielo. So happy to share the evening with you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Rafael. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, we'll have to do it again sometime, find another situation to create an event about. So to you folks, thank you for watching. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us. Have a good night. Take care.
Thank you so much.